As Pride Month ends with its message of inclusivity, some businesses are still discriminating against people, Steve.
Some banks, a major British building society technically, admits that it is closing accounts of people who are rude or discriminate amid uproar as banks accused of dumping customers like Nigel Farage over their views on Brexit and LGBT issues. Well, it's almost as if when you read the story, there are other stories in there of people who've had their accounts cancelled who actually might be a more worrying story, because we don't know whether it's Nigel's views or the fact that the EU marks him out as a politically, exposed person. Yeah. And if so, then banks have, who knows, there's a whole thing to dig into.
But isn't a politically exposed person just anybody involved in politics?
The tricky thing, yeah, that's the problem with the definition, it's so vague. But the bigger worry is like the story of a bloke who gets in touch with his building society, asks why there were so many pride flags and gets their account cancelled. Yeah. That person is not politically exposed. That is more of a worry. But I will say about the Nigel Farage thing, I don't think, even if you disagree with everything he's ever said, sure, you don't want him to lose a bank. You don't win the argument by going, oh, well, at least now he has to use a Swiss bank. Yeah. There's no win there. And I don't think loads of people think it's a win. Some people on Twitter think it's funny. Maybe if small people think it's good. But my word, they're the vocal ones.
I mean, mainly, it seems to be horrifyingly authoritarian, Nick.
Yeah, it's horrific. And the bank, well, the Building Society here talks about they can close the account of anyone who's rude, abusive, violent. You're sort of like, well, there's something in that. And then they go, or discriminates in any way, which is extraordinarily broad definition.
So if you don't like Crocs...
Right, the word comes from to separate or distinguish or make a distinction, so it's like just any distinctions are out, because obviously that can be used, and it has been used for this man Toby Young talked about, who said he didn't understand why there needed to be pride flags all over the branch, and then he had his account shut down. That's how arbitrary it is. And Steve talking about Twitter, I mean, people here, some guy called Keith Burge said, first they came for Nigel Farage, and they held the door open and pointed at Nigel Farage, so he thinks it's a big lark. And then Kay Burley, of all people, said, if 8 separate banks don't want your custom, I suppose you'd start to wonder why. It's like, oh, great take.
Oh,
siding with the fascists.
I mean, would you say that to a Chinese political dissident?
Exactly.
I mean, that's an absolute nonsense. I mean, and also for them to say they'll refuse custom to somebody who discriminates, that in itself is discriminating. So they should
shut their own bank.
Shut their own bank down.
Yeah, that would solve the problem somehow, wouldn't it? But it still feels like it's not the battleground that's worth winning. So even those tweets, maybe there's a smug, enjoyable smile that they have, but at the end of it, no one's going to go like, yeah, we won that one, because Brexit still happened, but now he banks elsewhere.
Yeah, and in fact, if anything, it's going to, enrage the public and motivate them against this kind of thing. Instead of trying to build a consensus and include everybody.
Yeah, but there has to be some sort of legislation, doesn't there, to make sure they can't do this. I can't see another solution.
Well, the Equality Act of 2010 means that I believe, as I understand it, means you can't deny custom to, somebody, so say, for example, for their sexuality. So I'd have thought, that should be updated to cover political opinions.
You think, but there used to be a law you had to have a bank account, right? And then they scrapped that law, so they don't actually have that. You're saying it should be covered by 2010, but apparently, obviously isn't, is it? It's been usurped by this politically exposed person thing that comes from the EU, and anyone can be and the justification is we don't want the extra hassle and the extra paperwork, any extra cost, the bank can say, but the problem is you need to get rid of that rule, which has been abused clearly.
Yeah.